all by myself. I don't mind being all by myself at home. G'day, mates, as they say in France. Uh, you might hear it in my voice. I still, have the Lemuria, but I must soldier on because my fans demand it. I'm hoping to get better soon. I got some medicinals. I was almost going to hold up the box, but network said I'm not allowed to do that anymore. Something about soliciting advertisers, so I cannot mention brand names on the air, which seems silly to me. I mean, if the good people at Sudafed and Halls want to send me free samples, who am I to complain? But I'll follow the rules. Anyway, I was watching a video today, and it was somebody doing an audit up in Fairbanks, Alaska, and they did it just a couple days ago, and there was like 2 feet of snow all over the place. So I first off thought, okay, maybe Pennsylvania's not so bad. And then it reminded me of something from a few years ago. I used to be the boroughs, that's the official name of the town. It's a borough. Pennsylvania has boroughs, townships, and cities, and counties. And speaking of which, I can't figure out, I've seen a lot of videos in New York, and they've got like towns and villages that like overlap. I can't figure out what the difference is, because it'll be like the town of Smithton, their city hall or whatever is right across the street from the village of Smithton City Hall. So if anybody knows what that's about, let me know. But anyway, we're talking about Pennsylvania. And back a few years ago, I spent some time as the borough's emergency management coordinator. And I enjoyed that. I learned a lot from it. I went to a bunch of state seminars. They would, you'd go to these free, they were paid for by the state, a weekend seminar somewhere. And they'd put you up in a hotel. Sometimes they'd even give you meal vouchers. But you'd spend a couple days hearing different kind of lectures and stuff. I'm sucking on a couple of those, anonymous lozenges. I got the sugar-free honey lemon. I like them. Anyway, so yeah, I did that emergency management thing. And, basically, I think emergency management, they're the people that are supposed to coordinate things when there's, floods and earthquakes and tornadoes, and Osceola doesn't get those very often. There was some bad flooding at the bottom of town some years ago, so long ago I was still in school. I think I was in like 9th or 10th grade. And, but, usually emergency management in Osceola is not too hard of a job. You have some paperwork you're supposed to fill out You do like emergency plans if you have any hazardous chemical sites or anything. And really, the only place in town I needed to do a plan on was the swimming pool for the chlorine that was stored there, because we don't have like any factories or anything. We did have one incident. There was a store in town, a convenience store, and it turned out their gas tank was leaking, and it was rolling downhill underground, and a stream of gasoline was going right through the basement of a couple of buildings. One of them was a bar, and another one was a bar hotel across the street. So it was a potentially, hazardous thing. And so we had to evacuate a bunch of people and stuff. And it was a fun 3 days or so. I remember it was even picked up by Associated Press. But that's not the incident I was going to talk to you about. I remember the one winter we got real bad heavy snow, and the thing that made it bad was one of those deals where you got like 2 feet of snow in 12 hours. It's easy to deal with 2 feet of snow when it comes over a couple of days. They can keep up with it. But this was one of those ones that was kind of unexpected. Just came in and dumped a whole lot of snow real fast. So that shut things down. But Osceola actually didn't have it too bad, because we got our streets cleared. When I say we, I mean the borough crew did that. I had nothing to do with it. And our electricity came on pretty quick, because there was electricity was down all over the place. But the lucky thing about here was Osceola was sort of near the beginning of what they had to fix. It's like, I think they probably had to get like Phillipsburg before us, but they had to do Osceola, fix their, what are they called, a relay station or something, the transformers. They had to do ours before they could move into the outer areas and up the road more. So our power was out, I think, for less than a day. And like I said, our streets had gotten cleared off. So I wasn't really needed here. But the county was in bad shape. So I called the county EMA director, Brian, his name was, and asked if there's anything I could do to help him out. And he said he could sure use some help answering the phones. So me and my assistant Mike went over to Clearfield to work the phones. And I'll tell you, I can remember getting phone calls from people where it's, one lady called and she said there was a huge tree hanging over her trailer, and she was afraid it was going to break and, crush the trailer, and she couldn't get out. And that was like a common thing all over the county, as people were stuck in their driveways if your house was very far off the road at all. It was hard to clear out a space to drive your car out, even if you had someplace to go to. But anyway, I remember this lady calling and saying about that tree hanging over. So we got a hold of the local fire company and sent them up there to help them out. And that's what a lot of the calls were, was people who had no power, and we'd send a fire company out. They had 4-wheel drives, and they'd go out and they'd get the people and take them to shelters. There were like churches and places like that the Red Cross had contracts with to shelter people whenever something like this would happen. And I remember a couple of calls I got. One was a lady. She called up, and she said she didn't have any food in the house, and she had a couple of kids. And I remember I said to her something about getting people to deliver to her. And she said, well, the problem is I don't have any money. And so we arranged, the fire company, because she said she had heat, because she had like wood burner and that. So she didn't need to be evacuated, because I offered to have her taken to a shelter, and she said no, they could stay at home. She just needed food. So we got the fire company to, I think they picked up some stuff from Red Cross and took up to her to get her through a couple of days. But I always remember thinking, what would she have done if there was no disaster? She had no food and no money. It's like, this wasn't really an emergency management call, Anyway, had a lot of people calling and complaining about how long it was taking to get their electricity on. Because there were some people around here that their power was off literally for weeks. And it was because they had a co-op electric company, which, I'm no expert on, but I guess it's sort of like a customer-owned type of thing. And I guess it's cheaper, but the problem is, like for those of us with Penelec, or any big company like that, they've got mutual aid agreements with other companies. That's why sometimes you'll see, if there's a hurricane, up in Massachusetts or something, and there will be Penelec trucks going up there to help them. And it's not just like out of the goodness of their hearts, it's because they have a mutual aid agreement, so that, like in cases like this, we get this big snow. Well, if Massachusetts or, North Carolina or whoever, if they weren't hit, they send people to us. Anyway, but that was like a lot of the calls with people complaining and that. But I remember one guy, and most of the calls I was getting was from like the Clearfield area. And again, I know people who aren't from here don't know the particulars, but it's about 30 miles away from Osceola. That's where the I showed you a thing on the Clearfield courthouse. Anyway, most of them were there, but there was a guy, he called, and he just lived like about a mile outside of Osceola. And he said he was, and this was pretty much the way his words were, he was stuck at home with his 2 kids. It's like, you're not stuck with your kids, they're your kids. But anyway, and he was wondering if we could get the fire company to bring him up a portable generator because he didn't have any power. And I said, no. I said, but if you want, I said, we can get them to come up and pick you up and take you to a shelter that does have power and heat. He says, no, I don't need that. He says, I got heat because I've got, a wood burner. He said, but if I could just get a portable generator and get some electricity, he said, then I could power up the TV and the Nintendo for these kids and they'd stop driving me crazy. And amazingly, I just politely, told him, no, I'm sorry, there's no generators available. And whatever, and hung up on him. But I thought, I'm taking calls from people with huge trees hanging over their house, people who are, trapped inside their homes with somebody who was on oxygen, and they need either to be evacuated or to get oxygen out to them and whatever. And this guy is calling because he wants us to power up his Nintendo so his kids would stop driving him crazy. Just one of those, people are wonderful, aren't they? Anyway, that's just a little memory I had. I went a little over my time, but you can take that up with the network because I'm sure they'll be hearing from the advertisers saying I went through one of the commercials. And if anybody asks, I never mentioned Sudafed and Halls, okay? Just between you and me. Peace out.